Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, I'm gonna start here. So on my other channel, I made an hour-long video. Half of it's on Don Lemons, who hilariously called an obvious promotion. I mean, a demotion, a promotion. They're axing his show and putting him in on the morning show, right, on CNN, and like CNN is just imploding. I could have covered that here as well because most things are most things could be covered on either channel. But anyways, I started to cover this and I realized I wasn't going to get enough time to do this justice. But also today I want to cover Kanye and more stuff to do with King Chucky and a few more things. Can't remember all of it. But let's start here. And I want to talk about possible explanations for why everyone's feeling weird and off and why it feels like there's been some sort of shift and people are suffering. So I'm going to describe some of the symptoms. Let's go through this first and then we'll move to that. How the elite will see out the Apocalaughtic. Swiss firm creates huge fortified underground bunkers for the most powerful individuals in the world. An armory can be installed 50 feet underground, along with an airlock and decontamination chamber. The structure is built to NATO specifications with the same formulations used to build nuclear power plants. An oppidum is fully airtight and can be completely isolated from the outside atmosphere if required. Oppidum says its bunkers apply technology from NASA, and well, then we know it's not going to work. Are available in the EU, the UK, US, and UAE. And so there's one of the bunkers here underground. These big bunkers. See, it looks like that up top, and then underneath it's can store your bars of gold and your. This is for your bars of gold. This is for your artwork and all these things, right? So they're planning for a nuclear war, and many of these people are now building these things, and so that's that. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in terms of how people are feeling off, what I've been going through personally, and then other things that people are reporting back to me that they're going through or the symptoms that they're having and how it's affecting them. And so how it started on this channel is I was feeling off. My wife was complaining about headaches and she was having some issues. We both said we felt kind of a little bit weird. This is about 2 weeks ago, a month ago. I don't know when it started. And then I was noticing, there was an uptick in stories, weird stories, and I mentioned it. And then other people started to say, yeah, they've been feeling weird too. Lots of my viewers. I mean, lots of them. People write me personal messages and, leaving comments and saying that they were feeling weird. And then, I made a couple videos about that and I got even more comments. And I would say hundreds of comments where people were saying, because I posted something on both channels and I got hundreds of comments. I should post this on my other channel maybe at the end of the video tomorrow for those that don't hear it here. And you'll be hearing it on the other channel then tomorrow or something. But anyways, I got so many comments of people saying that they thought they were the only one feeling that way. And they, were glad to know other people were going through it. That was at least helpful. And I got a number of people who said they hadn't tuned into my videos in quite some time, but for whatever reason, they decided to look at my channel and they saw the title and they watched the video and it is exactly what they're going through. Well, so many things are, many people are experiencing it differently. But I'm going to list some of the symptoms, and if you're having different symptoms, it's a good place to leave the comments here. And then I'm going to talk about my possible explanations for this. And so for me, it was kind of a malaise was a good word to describe it. And the number one symptom I'm having, the number one thing that stays with me, and I'm having some, minor physical things. But my health has improved dramatically and it keeps on getting better because I'm trying more different things, right? Different, whatever it is. But, I've had some like just being really lazy and tired. But the number one thing I've been struggling with is it's hard for me to get my videos done in a timely fashion. And partly because, there's so much to cover and it's overwhelming. But I just am almost like, I got to force myself to grind it out. Not that I dislike making the videos, I enjoy doing it. But especially the editing portion, it's like I'm just pushing to get it get it done before dinner, the last video on this channel, which is, sometimes I'm finishing it at night. And it's been like that for a while. And usually I can get them all done in more timely fashion. Things are dragging on. Like there's things I want to do outside, work I want to do on the farm. And I got to push myself to do it, even though I enjoy going outside. And I'm just really lazy, really just lethargic. What was the word I used? Forgetful. Like that's one of the symptoms. Forgetting things. I've had that. And a malaise is the word I was looking for. And so that's how I've experienced it. But I've also had other emotions. Like there's some days I was just sad. That's how it started off, where I had a few days where I was just really sad, like just for no reason. Then I thought about things in my life that made me sad. But that was after I had the feeling. And then, some days I'd be like unsettled. I want to say fearful, but unsettled. And for no reason, wake up unsettled. And then some days anger. And all of them were not triggered by an event or a person. They just came on like I just be feeling it. That's, since I've been doing Heartfulness for a number of years, usually my negative emotions aren't triggered by some event. Like I just feel them, right? And then, then I can think about things in my life that, I should be angry about, or I should be, worried about, I should be, whatever it is. But it's usually just the condition is there. And so that's, maybe more specific to me, but I don't know how other people are feeling it. But there's just like it feels different, like something shifted. Like this feeling that something's different in the atmosphere, or we're waiting for something to happen. A lot of people have been talking about waiting for the other shoe to drop, or, Damocles sword. And, that's something they live with on a regular basis, but now it's even been more so. Like something's about to happen. It's like that feeling when it's really heavy with rain, but it's not raining yet. It gets the barometer, the barometric pressure goes up, and you can feel the rain coming. You can see the clouds there, but it's just like the calm before the storm kind of thing, where like time is sort of stands still, and then it's about to hit, right? And so like there's that kind of a feeling. Many people are having that. A lot of people are having headaches, which goes along with that, because before the storm, people often will get headaches with the barometric pressure changing. A lot of headaches I'm hearing. Various people have stomach aches, other, symptoms. I can't remember all the things that people have said. A lack of motivation, a feeling of what's the point, this kind of thing. I guess that all is covered under malaise. I mean, there's a lot of those kind of things, right? People feeling like they're moving in slow motion. And then I had some people talk about like suicidal thoughts that they didn't think that were their own. A few people talked about thoughts and being different than they normally are, right? Maybe ideas coming to them that normally wouldn't be their thoughts they're not used to having, things of this nature. And a lot of people are having issues in their family, lots of, just, and maybe things that they were able to tolerate before, not being able to tolerate them, and not being around, wanting to be around people. And this, Mercury went into retrograde, I think, on like the 9th or the 10th, but this was even before that. And so, it's more than just Mercury going into retrograde, but some of those kind of feelings. Want to isolate, maybe feeling lonely or not being able to communicate, these things. Irritability, or just, you're just over people, or, whatever it might be. So if there's any more symptoms that people have, or, way they're feeling that, could add to this description, you please leave a comment. Other people will, maybe see it or whatever. And there's things I'm forgetting. I thought like it's just how I feel. Like I'm not as sharp as I was, or I usually am about such things. My memory and whatever else. And so some of the ideas of what I think might be happening. So first of all, I want to say that, I'm a person that believes that there's a divine purpose here, and there's a divine plan. And for the divine plan, a time where we're going to shift to a more spiritual consciousness, that there is, going to be a giant spiritual evolutionary movement for the human race, there needs to be the destruction of our current system. So we're in a destructive phase. And so when people act destructively, the government, the controllers, or ordinary people, and are bringing the system down, they look like villains or evil people, but they're doing God's work. Regardless of why they're doing it, they might be the worst people, but they're doing something that needs to be done. And, because there has to be an end of one thing for the birth of another. And that's what's happening right now. One thing's ending, a thing we're 100% dependent on, so it sucks for us. Another thing is being born and created, which will be better for us in future lives, future generations of human beings and ourselves or whatever. And there's these periods where something ends. A yuga ends, something big ends on a global basis, on a universal basis, and there's a transformation. And when things end, it's very tumultuous, it's very difficult, to go through, because, ending is destructive, and, we're used to certain things and we don't have those things anymore, and our own personal experience with it, loss, and a sense of, fear of the unknown and all these things. And so, those things are happening. They appear to be negative, but they are on some level. But really, it's overall a positive thing. That's how I choose to look at all these things, and I have experienced it, that way. If you're a New Age person, you believe in indigo children or crystal children, this idea of higher developed souls coming down and, bringing in a new level of consciousness. If you're a Christian and believe in the end of days and, the revelation and things like this. I mean, there's, lots of teachings, the Mayans, all these different groups that believe a certain thing is going to happen. And now it's happening. That's how it, many of us are experiencing it. So for me, I believe it's a positive thing, right? But of course, human beings are doing things that are destructive and in a villainous way. And so those things are also there. That, maybe they're doing God's work, or they're probably doing God's work, but they're not doing it willingly. They're just doing it because they're destructive and selfish and evil in nature. So we'll get to those things, the things that humans, the controllers, may or may not be doing. And we'll get to some of the events that may or may not be happening. So in Whispers of the Brighter World, these channeled messages that have prophecies and predictions and things of that nature talk a great deal about money power being destructive and the electromagnetic pollution, which is Wi-Fi and all the things that are bouncing around from the various electrical devices we have that are destabilizing our subtle bodies and confusing people. So many bad things that they talk about in our current system. There are a series of upheavals that are talked about, some specifically, and those are nuclear war, that there's going to be nuclear war. I'm not going to read those things here, but I'll cover those maybe in a future video. Nuclear war, and I have in my Journey series. The other things are the poles reversing themselves. North becomes south, south becomes north. There's lots of evidence that might be happening. Not lots, but there's some initial signs that might be happening. And with the poles reversing themselves, the magnetic field becomes weakened, and it opens the door to solar flares, which can wipe out the electrical grid, and solar flares cause havoc on people as well. And so these are all some explanations of, physical things that could be happening that we are experiencing and are making us feel this way. There's a transformation that's happening on Earth, and there are some things that are underway or are planned for. Of course, nuclear war is not is a man-made thing. We'll get to that in a moment. That should be in the man-made category, but I'm talking about these prophecies that I believe are a good source, a great source for such things. Other things is that there has been this belief, there was this thing that went around in 2012 with the Mayan calendar. And there was some debate whether it was 2012 or 2024. And so many people thought that the Mayan calendar ended in 2012. Other people thought it ended in 2024 because there's going to be this drastic shift in the world conditions. And people talked about this planet called Nibiru which was a theory that was floated around in the truth community. I was telling my wife, we were talking about this, and I have such doubt in the truth community's legitimacy, stories, and these different things. Like, it's as deceptive now to me as the mainstream media. But there might be some truth in these things. But there's this idea of a planet or a dwarf star. Sometimes there is binary stars in a solar system where there is two stars or some planets that are have a very large elliptical orbit around the sun, and the planets aren't seen or known about, but every once in a while they become apparent to people. So this would be an explanation for chemtrails and things. Or there could be a binary star, a small dwarf star, and that is coming closer to Earth, and with that, the magnetic pull, I mean, there's all kinds of havoc it wreaks to have some really big planet or something show up in your sky, which is, I've seen a number of movies lately, and this has been a continuous theme about such an occurrence, that there be a planet just showing up in our visual field. I watched this movie called Melancholia, which is an old movie, and I never got past the beginning of it because it looked kind of stupid, and I had to kind of fast forward through it. It was very kind of depressing. But there was this planet that was headed on a collision course towards Earth, and it was a little bit interesting. But I've seen this in a number of TV shows and movies, this idea of some sort of planet or dwarf star ending up in our vicinity and wreaking havoc on our, atmosphere and the planet itself. And there's some legitimate research that's been done on such an event, right? And when the planet passes next to us, close to us, of course, there's meteor showers and whatever things, anything that's orbiting around the planet, moons or rocks, meteors or anything like this, right? And then there's just a gravitational pull and all of it. And so, I mean, that could be something, right? That's there. Again, I'm just listing the possible things that are going on in terms of the natural events. Also, it looks like that in the near future, there's going to be a change in the way the government presents alien life. The idea that, getting back to the true history of things, acknowledging perhaps that there were giants on this planet and that people have lived here a lot longer than they've talked about. There's various civilizations, and there is, off-planet beings that lived here or are connected, things like this. That's going to become possibly an invasion, something like this. These are all things that are, more realistically happening now than in the past, right? My wife has been doing some research about this stuff. She's on a different trajectory in terms of her, she woke up at a different time, became a truther at a different time, so she's on her own, sort of journey with it. Things that I've, haven't thought about in years, but she's been talking about it, and I said, yeah, there are these other things, and, there's all this archaeology that shows that there's been people living here for a very long time. Giants were referenced in Whispers of the Brighter World, and I'm going to be reading that in my next Journey Series video, talking about that a little bit. And so there's all those types of things, right? That some truth, some idea of, the pyramids and all the other things that are on this planet that have been lied to us, we've been lied to about becoming known. And that'll be, a shift in consciousness in ways that people can't really even fathom. And so those are the sort of natural events or, possible, outer world type of possible reasons for things that are hanging over our heads. And then let's get into the man-made aspect of this thing. I started this off with this idea that this is divine, and then people are acting on it purposely because too many people in truth community give way too much power to the so-called elite, the controllers. It's a big problem. But some of the things that could be going on a human level, the 5G could be kicking in. Like, it's been here for a while. We could be all experiencing the effects of millimeter waves, and it takes a while for your body to wear down, and so it could be something to do with that, right? 5G, has become more and more prolific. And again, we've been feeling it for a while. Not everyone's feeling it, so who knows how much it has to do with that, but that's a possibility. There was this idea of an operating system being placed in people through various ways, in the last couple of years, and that could be being activated, right? If that's actually happened and people have, had this, put in their body in one way or another, it would be more than one way because many of us haven't had the other way, right? But there could be, there's an idea floating around. I'm not sure I believe it, but, it's there, so I thought I would mention it. Another explanation is that people who run the system are, they have different ways of doing mind control and affecting our thoughts and things through the, the waves, the radio waves, the various television waves, the light waves and things, but also through, the computer or through TV and movies. And they've upped the subliminal messaging, or they've, done things that are having a deeper effect on us all, right? And that they've developed things, or they've had things a while and they're finally using them. I don't know. Something along those lines, right? We're all being affected by that, or there's something in the food or the water or whatever is going on in the world. Things are being placed in there to, wear people down mentally, or, or whatever it might be, right? Bombarding people with, it could be a combination of all these things going on at once. I talked about the impending world war, which could be a good explanation for this as well. Some sort of nuclear war, or an uptick in radiation, or, there could be something, just in terms of the sun's rays or something like this, that if the magnetic field is down, who knows, what's all going on in nature, and then in terms of man-made type of practices and so forth. Of course, there's always things that could be to do with CERN or any number of inventions and things that we've heard about, and, their influence over people. And it could be stuff that just have built up for a number of years, and now things have changed in the atmosphere or people themselves, or there's some, on a positive level, on a spiritual level, there's all this junk DNA that people have that's dormant DNA that can be activated to bring person to a higher level of consciousness and being. We're only operating on a small part of our capacity. And so that could be happening as well, right? There's so many different explanations for it, both, positive and negative. And in some ways, they're all positive. If we're talking about a change for the better at the end of this thing, in some ways, they're all negative because, that involves the system coming down and us, struggling to survive in a sort of a post-apocalyptic world. So I might be forgetting some things. I know I am. These are just some things that I, thought off of the top of my head. People can leave comments and, discuss this amongst yourselves. And let me get into the other stories here. Kanye says he is splitting with Gap after 2 years. Let's move forward here. Lawyers for the rapper say the retailer failed to meet obligations of their contract, and then West plans to begin his own Yeezy retail store. So here he is on CNBC. Who is this? What's happening here?
Joining us now to discuss, we've got a surprise guest for you, is Ye himself.
Ye is there on CNBC.
It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So talk to us about what happened here. Why are you terminating this deal with Gap?
Well, it was always...
Look, they're screwing Gap. Look at their freaking plummeting here. Is this the reason their stock is imploding?
Always a dream of mine to be at the Gap and to bring the best product possible to the masses. And I always talk to them about doing products for $20, like the best product in the world.
The best product in the world for $20.
Designed at the same level of the top fashion houses in the world at $20 for the people. And so we went through 3 years, and obviously there's always like struggles and back and forth when you're trying to build something new and integrate teams. So we designed an entire collection, and actually, I wasn't able to set the actual price that I wanted for this collection.
He wanted to bring some of his clothes down to the level of the people, unlike Kim Kardashian's $90 sweatpants for prisoners, right?
And then they actually took one of the shirts and sold it for $19. So didn't price my stuff. Priced my stuff at like 200 and above their whole price point normally, and then did the exact shirt for $20. Also, they did pop-ups, and I signed on with them because they had in the contract they said they were going to do stores, and they just ignored us about building stores constantly, and it was very frustrating. It was very disheartening because I just put everything I had. I put all of my top relationships. I went and got Dimna, the head designer of Balenciaga, which is one of the hottest brands in the world, to come. He does couture, and
Yeah.
with that relationship, he ended up working
She's like, yeah.
on a Gap collection for me. There are a lot of like things, colorways that I didn't approve. There's a lot of places that the product went to, certain sites where it was like they were just dog and pony and the idea around town. And sometimes I would talk to the guys, the heads up, the leaders, and it would just be like I was on mute or something. And they
Sometimes Kanye should write everything down ahead of time. Because it's just like a stream of consciousness.
totally
But, basically Gap screwed him.
our agenda, it wasn't aligned. And I know, my family, we're garmentos. My family, we made the first Louis Vuitton bootleg jogging suits. When they used to confiscate the bags at LAX, that's actually literally my family that would cut up those bags and make jogging suits. We literally would make
Did
cross
not know that.
colors. Yeah, this is because people always think of things like a celebrity. This kind of, I wouldn't have been so influential in clothing language. I like that, but I like the word language better than aesthetic, because the language is a base. Aesthetic is just a style. It's a language that me and Virgil and Dimna and
It's plummeting as we speak. As he craps all over Gap, it's
Jerry Lorenzo and Matt Williams brought in streetwear in this like Mark Echoes complex idea of what it is today, what high schools look like today, and everyone knows that I'm the leader, I'm the king, right? So a king can't live in someone else's castle. A king has to
exactly. You gotta have your own castle if you're a king. Can't be in somebody else's castle.
make his own castle.
All right, so now we know pretty much almost nothing about why Kanye left the Gap, other than they didn't price his clothes the way that they agreed upon, and they didn't fulfill their commitments in a very vague way. Kate Middleton shot icy glares at Meghan Markle's to freeze her out, experts say. Kate Middleton shot glares at Meghan Markle over the weekends. Meghan Markle's over the weekend at Windsor Castle to freeze her out, according to a body language expert. Quite unlike the confident Meghan we know, Meghan appeared ill at ease during this encounter, which is not surprising given the recent criticism that she has faced. This was that day that William didn't open the door for his anorexic dude there. I don't know. So there's some drama, like there's imploding drama there at the royal family. There's supposed to be live updates here. You stand by.
All night long, that line of people right there paying their respects to Queen Elizabeth II.
Look at these losers. These people are waiting in line to see a box that supposedly holds the remains, a corpse of a woman who's exploited them and their family for years, taking their taxpayer money and living, this opulent life. The crown, they all want their crown jewels. India, South Africa wants their jewels back from the crown, right? I mean, Charles is imploding. And these people look at them waiting in line for this, right? They have nothing better to do than do this. Like, for me to do this, I don't know what would be worth it for me to do this, right? For me to stand a line, like this long line, go through ropes. And I guess once in a while you go to an airport, not like this though. You have to do this kind of thing. There's some kind of a queue. We go back and forth. But I mean, look at this thing. They're spending hours upon hours to get into this, this cryptic Illuminati church and stare at the, box that holds a corpse of some reptilian woman that, has lorded over them for the last 90 years.
Line still stretching for miles and miles.
Get this, so many people turned out that officials
Imagine waiting in a mile.
paused the line to keep it from getting any longer. Meanwhile, we are learning more about what to expect on Monday at the Queen's funeral. Billions of people are expected to watch around the world.
For more on all of it, let's bring in Sky News anchor and the NBC
What's up with this dude? Is he going to glitch?
News contributor Wilfred Frost, once again outside Buckingham Palace for us this morning. Wilfred, good morning to you, sir. Thanks for joining us again. We saw the lines of mourners for a second night, as mentioned. So long.
Unbelievable. It's a corpse-a-thon.
Call the crowds off. They're expected to grow even more this weekend. What's the mood like
There's a corpse there.
in London right now as we look ahead to that funeral on Monday?
It's great to be with you guys again. I mean, as you just said, that the officials had to shut the queue to try and stop people being disappointed. But the Brits love standing in line so much, they formed another queue, a queue to join the queue.
They just love being slaves so much. They're like, hey, we'll still form our own queue. You won't let us in your 3-mile line. We'll form our own mile line.
Which shows the commitment to want to pay their respects to Her Majesty and the slightly odd nature
Her Majesty
that Brits have about wanting to stand in line. But I do still think there's been this warmth and strange positivity to everything that we've been talking about.
Oh, my God. All right. Kylie Jenner wears lipstick, top on CR Fashion book cover. Lipstick top. I'm sorry, didn't use my right pronunciation. She's wearing lipstick as a top because she's Kylie Jenner, and that's how she rolls. All right, so one of my viewers sent me this. This is Prince Charles, King Chucky, and that's his dude right there. He's got something to say.
My lords and members of the House of Commons, I am deeply grateful for the addresses of condolence by the House of Lords and the House of Commons.
The House of Lords. It's the House of Lords. He's in for a rough ride. He's just little Lord Fauntleroy.
Which so
Little Lord Chuckleroy.
touchingly encompass what our late sovereign, my beloved mother, the Queen, meant to us all. But I'd like to make one thing straight.
Oh, look at these wigged MFers here wearing this fake wigs and it's an abomination.
Charlie's in charge now, and shit's about to get real.
I didn't expect that. I'm just watching this.
Oh. But I'd like to make one thing straight. Charlie's in charge now, and shit's about to get real.
Okay, I'm not going to play the rest of this thing. It actually gets funnier, right? It's kind of hilarious. But it's got too many swears, and YouTube has a policy of, it'll demonetize videos with excessive swearing. But if you go to my Twitter account, and it's linked in the description box underneath this video and every video. And there's my Twitter, which I never use, but I retweeted it if you're interested in hearing the rest of it. And so there's that. And then here's little Lord Chuckleroy, he's just so sad and pathetic here and is sitting on his throne, right? And I just want to add one more thing in closing here, because people think that when you're successful, like there's people who get to be president, but their presidency sucks. Or they get to be in the NFL or the NBA, or, they get to be a professional athlete. Bill Buckner, right? The guy who had a ground ball go through his legs and Red Sox fans wanted to kill him, right? So, you might get to be king, but it doesn't mean it's going to go well for you. And for Charles, like I said, I've talked about this in multiple videos, it's a storm of like FU, that's coming his way. It's just lining up in every possible way. Such a sad sack. It's the wrong time. There's a trailer out there for a new movie. I think it's called The Woman King. It's about a woman who it's the woman who said have a meme of her saying, you don't think we have the balls to pull it off, right?
Because no one thinks we have the balls to pull this off.
And so and so she's stars in this movie. It's called The Woman King. And a woman's a queen, like why has it got to be king, right? They want to take everything. And apparently she's like it's in Africa, and she's she's a leader that fights against the guys trying to come and enslave them. And so but that's just the time we live in, where King Chucky is the epitome of male white privilege, and nobody really likes him. There's a Diana factor. There's how much his mom was admired. Like, she had a good reign as queen. And then there's these guys that run the thing called the firm, right? These are the puppet masters, the handlers. They're the guys that are, really into the throne, and, they know all the rules, and they guide the monarch in a way where they, basically puppet the monarch, and they sabotage and leak information. They don't like somebody. They're there to guard the throne, and, they know that Charles is bad for it. Chucky is bad for it. And so, they don't really like him anyway. And, he's waited for a long time, and it's just he's a hard act to follow, even though she was, a nightmare to us. The people that love the queen, and they never really liked him, and they love Diana more. And it's just the wrong guy at the wrong time, right? I mean, it's a time where women are coming into power, and, all of it. And so, like, he's just going to be the fall guy for whatever has to happen. Like, they're going to have to reinvent the royal family in a way that, someone's got to be the fall guy, and it's going to be Chucky, right? It's just lined up like it's just a big barrage of suck for him. And you can just see it. His, like, whiny little face and all of it. I mean, so, he's just that guy, right? And it just can't go well for him. He just can't have a good, it's just not possible. It's just beyond him to have, whatever it is, a positive kingdom, or, kinghood, whatever it is. His time of king is going to, pass him by. There was the guy before Queen Elizabeth's dad. He was the guy that was supposed to be the king. Queen Elizabeth's dad was unhealthy and kind of a putz. And he was the younger brother, or whatever it might have been. I don't know how it was. And he didn't want to be king. His brother, his elder brother, then married somebody from America that was a divorcee or something like that. And I think they lived in America or France or something. It's in that show, The Crown. It's kind of famous, and he got booted for marrying somebody he wasn't supposed to. And so that was, back whenever. And that was a big scandal. And he was more fitted or suited to be the king. He was always lurking, and then he ended up, being sold out. He had something like that, right? But he lived a crappy life. He was always resentful. He wanted to be king, but he also wanted to marry this, whatever her name is. Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. But it's kind of an interesting story, and that's, fairly recently. And so this happens quite a bit, where the king doesn't measure up, and the powers that be, all these lords, all these people, orchestrate the guy's departure. But in Chucky's case, he's going to take a beating first, and they'll reorganize the empire, and then they'll drop it in somebody else's lap or wherever, however that'll go. And, it'll be kind of interesting, but hopefully the whole thing implodes because they're parasites. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paravano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.